Hi all, welcome to a new session of Azure Data Factory, and today we are going to start with Sync tab. In today's session, we are going to look into these 5 points. First one is sync dataset, second is going to be copy behavior, third is going to be max concurrent connection, fourth is block size in MB, and then fifth one is metadata. Okay, so let's go to our data factory. Let me go to my Azure portal. Okay, so I'm going into my data factory studio. Fine. So we were discussing data factory pipeline, PL copy customer data, and this pipeline has one copy activity. Okay. Now we have discussed all the options in general section. We have discussed everything in the source section. Now we are going to look into what are the different options of sync section. Now the first option is sync dataset. So it is also similar to source. We have to create a data set which is going to reference or which is going to create a reference to the data that we are going to put in the sync. So it is going to be a CSV type and it is going to be a delimited text, and here you can get all the things related to your data set. So I'm saying that my file will be delimited by comma, what will be the row delimiter, what is going to be the encoding. So most of these things are pretty much standard, so you don't have to touch it until unless you actually want to make something uh, very specific. So like if you want to change your separator to start of the heading because comma is coming in your data set, then these kind of things you can do here. Okay, so we will go through these in later sections, but just remember that we have to give a data set, and this is a mandatory section, so you have to give a data set, otherwise this copy activity will give you an error. Okay, now I have parameterized this data set and it is taking file path and file name as a parameter from the user when we are running the pipeline. Then we have copy behavior. In copy behavior, we have three options: flatten hierarchy, merge file, and preserve hierarchy. Most of the time we use preserve hierarchy. Flatten hierarchy you can use, but in that case you will not be able to give the name to your sync files. So file name will be given by the ADF, and in the case of merge file, all of your data will be merged into one single file, and that file name you can give. So remember that in flatten hierarchy, you will flatten the hierarchy, you will get every file in one single folder, but that file will be of a different name. You cannot control the name of that file. In the case of merge files and preserve hierarchy, you can define your name of the file and that file name will come. Max concurrent connection, again, how many connections you want to allow data factory copy activity to make to sync, so that it can copy the file in the sync location. And this is also, I would say, kept it blank and let the copy activity decide, until unless you also have other users who are making connections to your sync where you are copying your data, and you want to make sure that everybody is getting some resource to access that sync location in ADLS. You don't pretty much touch this particular option, so you keep it as blank. Block size MB. So block size MB is like, if you are familiar with HDFS concept, so when you are keeping a file in HDFS, it is actually getting partitioned, and each partition has a specific size. Similarly, when you are saving your file in ADLS, Azure Data Lake, that file is actually made up of blocks, and the file is called as blob, and the blocks that are making the file are basically of a specific size. So that size can vary from 4 MB to 100 MB. By default, it is 100 MB, but if you want to make your block size smaller, then you can give the block size between 4 to 100 MB, whatever. You cannot give less than 4 MB, you cannot give more than 100 MB. So that is the limitation. So I also haven't seen this option being used in most of the pipelines. Now the metadata part is something that we are going to focus. So we have covered the sync data set, copy behavior, max concurrent connection, and block size. Now we are going to demo what is metadata, how the metadata is being used. Okay, so let's go back to our data factory, and I'm also going to open my data lake. Fine, I'm going to remove config file, I'm going to remove customer sync, delete. I'm going to go into customer source. I'm going to remove everything except customers.csv, and I'm going to use edit option to remove the first three rows as well, and I'm going to save it. Okay, fine. Now if you come down, you have something like metadata. Okay, so you have key value pair. Let me give a metadata key value pair here. So I'm saying this data is coming from PBL customers database table. Okay, let me save it. Okay, so this is a metadata key value pair that I have given in my source. Now suppose while putting the data into sync, I also want to give something here. So I want to give what was the time when the data was copied into sync. Okay, then we can use this option metadata column. So we can add additional columns here. I'm going to say add dynamic content. Okay, let me save, validate, close. Let me add couple of things. Pipeline name, let me see if I can give a name to. Okay, so here I can say copy customer data. Fine, let me validate. Okay, it is done. Cool. I'm going to publish everything. So remember, we have one key value pair already for customer.csv in our source, and we have defined three more in our sync. So it is going to give us the current timestamp when it was last modified, pipeline name, and the activity name. Okay, let me do a debug. I'm going to say I want it into customers sync directory, and I want customer.csv as a file name in sync. So it's running now. Let's wait for a couple of seconds. Okay, let's see why it failed. Okay, I think I have to skip it. Okay, yeah, got the issue. Let me do one more debug run, and I'm going to say customers sync. And since I'm saying preserve hierarchy, I don't have to give any a name here because it is already going to take the name of the source file. Strange. Operation return honest. Okay, let's see. There is some problem in this source. Yeah, this was the issue. Okay, so now let me publish. This is a folder while required to copy customer data. Okay, I think I messed up in the data set of this source. Customers.csv. Okay, I think now I will be able to give correct. So debugging is also part of the pipeline building process. So you should be able to understand what the pipeline error is. So here I encountered two error. One error was because I was having uh, I was selecting this option list of files and I was trying to put everything into one file while using preserve hierarchy. So that is not going to happen. And the second thing was because I was giving the file name here. So if you are using preserve hierarchy, you should not give the file name. And now if I'm using list of files, you have to give only directory in your data set. You cannot define a file name. So when I fix this issue here, this issue came because of list of files option. Now I have selected file path in dataset and I have chosen customer.csv. Okay, so let me validate. Yep, everything is looking good. Let me do a debug. Customers sync. It succeeded. Okay, so let's go back to our data. We have customer sync here in customers.csv. And if you see, we have our other two metadata key value pairs. How we can use these, like why this metadata is important, we will see later when we go into get metadata activity. But for now, just like remember that this metadata you can define any number of key value pairs. So it's like giving a tag to your file. So when you actually create a file, if you want to give some kind of identification or some kind of I would say information, additional information which is specific to that file, not to the data that is stored inside file, you can create that kind of data in your metadata section as key value pair. Okay, so that was metadata in the sync. And before we wind up for today, let's just go through all the five options one more time. So sync dataset is an asterisk. It's a mandatory option. You have to create a dataset in sync. This is going to reference the dataset that you are going to create in your sync. So you are going to create a delimited file, you are going to create JSON, what kind of file you are going to create. Based on that, you have to select other options also. Then you have copy behavior. So there are four, but essentially we use preserve hierarchy. After that, we use merge file. uh, Flatten hierarchy we use rarely. I have never used any dynamic content before. Then you have max concurrent connections. Again, if you are using a data lake that is accessed by other people or other different applications, and you want to make sure that your pipeline should not make so many connections that others suffer, so you can define the number of connection at max your pipeline should make to the sync. Block size, if you are storing a file on ADLS, the file is stored in a set of blocks. So each block can be of size 4 MB to 100 MB. By default, this is done by the data factory and the ADLS. You don't have to worry about it too much. But if you want to give your block size specifically, you can use this option, but you have to be between 4 MB to 100 MB range. Metadata, this particular thing you define in order to make your life easier. So for example, if you are creating a pipeline where you are copying files, and those files need to have some kind of tag or information by which you should be able to later identify when this file was generated, what was the purpose, timestamp, etc. All those kind of things you can store in metadata, and that particular thing is done using key value pair. Okay, so I hope this session was informative. I also ran into a couple of issues, and we sorted that out. So it was like for me also some new things. So let's wind up for today, and after this session we are going to see what we are going to see next. Let's see, we are going to see the uh, max rows per file. I think it is pretty straightforward, but still I will show you, and the file extension. Okay, so these are the two things that I'm going to show. Quote all text, we will also see this. Okay, so right now these two things are grayed out. I will show you why these two things are grayed out and how we can use max rows per file as well. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me today. Let's meet in the next session. Thank you.